Hello my lovely crafty friends, welcome to the Crochet Cakes YouTube channel. In today's video tutorial we are going to learn how to make the single crochet thermal stitch and the double crochet thermal stitch. So grab your favorite yarn and your hook and let's get started. So for this tutorial I'm going to be using some We Crochet Wool of the Andes worsted weight, and my friends over at Furls sent this lovely, beautiful, elegant resin crochet hook, a 5mm, which I will be using for this tutorial. So the thermal stitch is it's just a great stitch when you're trying to make anything thick for your kitchen or possibly a sweater. I haven't tried crocheting a sweater with it, but it sounds fun nonetheless. So to begin this, we are simply going to be doing a chain, and the number of stitches you do is completely up to you. This stitch is not restricted by any number of stitches or anything like that. So as I mentioned in the beginning, today we are going to be learning how to work the thermal stitch, both single crochet thermal stitch and double crochet thermal stitch. So let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 chains. So that's 12 stitches, right? Because when I'm going to turn, I'm going to work. Now, when you're working the thermal stitch, this is how I like to work it. So we're going to work into the top of the chain, okay? So for this row one, we're simply going to work a single crochet stitch, but just making sure to work at the top of the chain only. So what we mean by that is that if we look at our chains, we have a top loop here and we have a bottom loop here. So we're just working into the top loop for this first row. And this is just doing single crochet stitches. Okay, and now that we finished row one, we are going to chain one. We're going to insert our hook into the back loop of the single crochet only. So again, sorry, that's where we're working. So the back loop and the little stair or remaining loop from the chain row that we did, okay? So that would be here, that remaining loop. So again, there we go. And we're going to work a single crochet. So again, we go into the back loop only and into the chain that's right below this stitch as well. We're going to insert our hook and then we're going to complete our single crochet. So we yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2. So again, back loop, remaining loop from the row below. And we do a single crochet. So let me grab a knitting needle to really show you. Okay, so we're working into this back loop and then the remaining loop from the row below. Back loop, remaining loop. Back loop, remaining loop from the row below. So we should have the same number of stitches that we started with, which in my case is 12, because we are working into every stitch from the current row and the row below as well. So unless you're increasing or decreasing with this stitch, you should always have the same number of stitches. And the thermal stitch, at least single crochet thermal stitch, really is as simple as that. This is a stitch that I have used in my cafe collection, which I will leave linked for you in the description box below. All right, let's double check that I have the same number of stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. All right. So this last one here will be 12. Okay. So for row 3, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to insert our hook in the back loop of the first stitch and into the remaining loop from the row below. And we're going to yarn over, pull through to do our single crochet. So again, back loop of the current row and remaining loop. So I call this a little stair that it leaves, right? Because you're going into the back loop and then the remaining loop from the row below. And that is the thermal stitch. Remember that you are always going to have the same number of stitches that you've started with. So as I mentioned, I use this stitch in my cafe collection. I also like to use it to crochet pot holders and just anything that I want to use in the kitchen that I want to have a double thickness. You could use this to make a purse, you could use this to make a rug. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and if you really want like the thick cowl, I think this would be very good as well. Okay, so again, just check that you should have 12 stitches in my case. Now I'm going to be doing one more row with you guys, but I think you already get the idea. As you can see, the thermal stitch in single crochet, you can really tell it's dense, it's double thickness. Sometimes it might be difficult to count the rows, so I always recommend to keep a row counter or just a little tally. Here we have 1, 2, and 3 rows. But it's clear now we're doing the back loop and the little staircase or the remaining loop from the row below. And that is it for the single crochet thermal stitch. You would just continue repeating, working in the back loop and then the remaining loop from the row below until your pattern indicates otherwise. And now after this one, I'm going to work some rows off camera and I will show you how to close off after you've completed your set number of rows. Okay, so here's my little itty bitty baby swatch, right? But let's say I've completed what I wanted to crochet. So now I would chain 1 and turn, just what we've been doing. But now for the final row in this thermal stitch, instead of doing just the back loop alone, I'm actually going to go through the both loops of my current row and then the remaining loop of the bottom row. So again, to close off, I'm going to be going under the whole stitch or under the 2 loops, and then I'm going to go into the remaining loop from the row below, and I'm going to work my single crochet. So 2 loops, remaining loop, and work a single crochet. 2 loops, remaining loop, and work a single crochet. And we would continue that to the end of the row. And remember, you should always have the same number of stitches, so I should have 12 single crochet stitches. Now, why do we work this last row under both loops instead of just the back loop? Because it closes it off real nice. Just look at that. So that is the thermal stitch done in with the single crochet. Let's work the thermal stitch with the double crochet. So for the thermal stitch done in double crochet, we're going to repeat the same steps as with the single crochet. It's just that in this case, I'm going to be chaining a little bit extra so that I can start my chain in this third chain. So again, that is the third chain from the hook. I'm going to go into the top of that chain and I'm going to work my double crochet. Okay, so that is technically 2 stitches already. Again, just like we did with the single crochet thermal stitch, we're just going to work our first row of the double crochet thermal stitch in the top loop of the chain. You could also start this first double crochet thermal stitch row by instead doing single crochet in the top loop only. I think that also forms a very nice border, especially if you do your last row with single crochet stitches as well. But for now, I'm just going to continue working my double crochet stitches into the top of the chain, just like we did for the single crochet thermal stitch. I actually chained for 13, that's okay. All right, now we're going to chain 1 and turn just like we did with the single crochet. Okay, and now we're going to yarn over for our double crochet, but just like we did with the single crochet, we're going to work the back loop of the double crochet and the remaining chain. Back loop, remaining loop from the row below. Back loop, remaining loop from the row below. Back loop, remaining loop from the row below. Okay, so let's do that. Yarn over for the double crochet, insert your hook into the back loop of this first stitch and into the remaining loop of the row below. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. You've completed your double crochet. Again, yarn over for your double crochet, go into the second stitch, back loop only, remember, and the remaining chain or loop from the row below. So again, we're just repeating the same steps as we did for the single crochet thermal stitch. It's just that now we are going to be using double crochet stitches to complete our rows. Back loop and remaining loop. Okay, so you see here, again, back loop, remaining loop, back loop, remaining loop, back loop, remaining loop. And we're going to continue to double crochet. So again, you should have the same number of stitches. So that means that when I look here, this is the back loop of 1 stitch, the remaining loop from the bottom row. And again, and I now have a total of 13 double crochet stitches. So again, we repeat the process of chaining one and turning, yarning over for our double crochet, working into the back loop only, and the remaining loop from the row below. Again, and you can already see that while this stitch is dense, it feels a lot lighter than the thermal stitch done with the single crochet. So I'm going to complete this row with you, and then I will show you the two stitches side by side so you can do your own comparisons. So as you can tell, even though the double crochet thermal stitch is dense, it still has a bit of a squishiness to it that the single crochet thermal stitch lacks. So dense, squishy. To close off the thermal double crochet, I actually like to do a single crochet thermal stitch. So like we did before, we're going to go under both loops of the current row or current stitch, and then we're going to go under the remaining loop from the row below, and we're going to do a single crochet again under both loops, under the remaining loop from the row below, and do a single crochet. I just feel that this squares off our double crochet thermal stitch very nicely, and it makes for a strong foundation row and a strong end row. And most importantly, there's no staggering between any row, okay? It still looks complete and lovely and squishy. So there we have it. We have the single crochet thermal stitch and the double crochet thermal stitch. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and that you found it useful. Let me know what projects you would work up with these stitches, and if you need any ideas to get you a bubbling and brewing or just hooking on, then I'm going to leave a link to my cafe collection in the description box below, where you will find projects that use these stitches. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I just want to wish you some very happy crafting moments. Goodbye.